What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Hope you're all doing very, very well. Grab your coffees. I think you all know why we're here. I finally decided on a main that I'm going to play. And throughout, at least at the beginning of Dragonflight, a couple things I want to say about sort of picking my main. I'm going to go through a list of options that I seriously considered for my main character in Dragonflight. So there's actually 6, I think. Maybe there's like 5. It depends on the specs and stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's essentially 6. But I'm going to go through them. I'm also going to go through some honorable mentions that I've talked a lot about over the last several weeks in my YouTube videos and in my streams. People have been asking me, like, what are you going to main in Dragonflight? What do you think you're going to play? This looks good. That looks good. What do you think about this new build? And honestly, there are so many choices. It feels like in Dragonflight, I have so much footage of just going into dungeons and just blasting with almost every single DPS spec that I've been able to pick up. And that feels really good to me. Like, it feels like the competition is fierce. It's thick. It feels like it's really, you could pick whatever you want, and you're going to be doing really optimal damage. And it really is just up to you in terms of some of the other factors, like how much fun is it, what's the playstyle like, all that jazz. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to give quickly my criteria here for why would I pick my main. What is the criteria that I'm looking at when it comes to picking my main? Again, guys, you can pick whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You guys can pick whatever characters you want to go with. But I have a few reasons why I would pick a main as I'm heading in Dragonflight. I'm going to talk about them right now. Number 1, melee versus ranged. I am really a melee guy. I love moving all the time. I'm not much of a spellcaster. I don't mind playing certain casters. Ellie, Shaman, Fire Mage. I was actually experimenting with Fire Mage recently. It's a lot of fun. But ultimately, I'm a melee person at heart. So really, when it came down to what was my main going to be, we basically already eliminated all the range specs. So BM Hunter was even really, really fun. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. But in reality, I'm a melee guy at heart, and that's just the way it is. So right off the bat, we're kind of scooping. We're getting rid of the range DPS, both physical and the spellcasters. So that's the first thing. Number two, sorry. The first real criteria on my list is how much fun is the build. Actually, how much fun are people having with this build? And I think it's really, really important to ask yourself that question. If I'm playing this, am I having fun? If I'm not having fun, why the hell am I paying $15 a month to play a game that I'm not having fun in? Am I picking the meta choice but not having fun doing it? What is the point in that? I do not care at all about what the meta is or what all the experts are saying you guys should all play. Please just go and play what you find is fun. It's such an enormous thing. This is what you get to do in your spare time, your off time. You get to sit down and play WoW in a brand new expansion. Play something that's fun. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's what's going to dictate what I'm playing in terms of my class, my spec. It's very important, I think. Number 3, does the class spec have multiple build options? So specifically the spec itself, are there multiple build paths that I can go? Are there very obvious themes of like a bleed build for arms, let's say, or fire damage or nature damage or whatever? Are there different build paths that I can go down that allow me to experiment a little bit with this spec and therefore increase the amount of fun that I'm going to have? I love to dig around in the talent trees and check things out and try to come up with different builds and different ideas that I could possibly run. And there are some specs that really lack that creativity. They're just really on a one-track mind, and that is very frustrating. But that's what I'm looking at, is multiple build options. Number 4, being able to play multiple roles. I really, really enjoy the Trinity in World of Warcraft. I love tanking, I love healing, and now I love DPSing as well. So that'll influence my decision here. Can the class tackle all 3 roles? Or some of them, 2 out of the 3. Very, very important to me. The last thing is, what kind of utility can the class bring to a raid and Mythic Plus kind of environment? So that's a really big deal because I am going to be part of a raid team. I'm going to be doing lots of Mythic Plus. I want to have tools to help my team be successful. That's a huge part of having fun for me, is being able to be successful with my team and bring that. So those are my determining factors for what I'm going to pick a main for. Now, let's talk about the honorable mentions in here, and I am going to bring up some video for you guys so you guys can sort of just watch this in the background. I don't want to be completely boring. So I'm going to mention first and foremost Arms Warrior and Fury Warrior. So unfortunately, these guys are on the honorable mention list, which means they're not making like my top 5 that I was going to choose from. I've enjoyed playing Arms Warrior and Fury Warrior, but the reality is, like, even though Arms is much more accessible now, much easier to play than it used to be, the reality is that I just don't love the style as much as some other classes in the game. I just don't love the Arms or Fury playstyles kind of as much as I enjoy some of the other ones. Fury, for example, is just such a one-track mind. I talk about sort of the playstyle deviation. You're always just getting back to Rampage. That's all you're doing as a warrior, as a Fury Warrior, is getting back to Rampage. And it does a lot of damage, but I kind of just want a little bit more diversity than that. So the Arms Warrior, even with the new bleed build for Arms Warrior, I do think that that's very exciting. But again, I'm just not in love with the playstyle of Arms or of Fury. And I think that they're going to be kind of on the shelf now. Prot Warrior will always have a special place in my heart. I will always be trying out Prot Warrior, and I will try that probably into the later parts of the expansion. But for now, for right off the bat, it's just not going to be something that I'm trying. The next honorable mention would be Windwalker Monk. I talked a lot about Windwalker Monk, and I was honestly very excited about the idea of Windwalker Monk, and how much damage it was doing, and the difference between Windwalker Monk. Oh, there's the finish. We'll just run that back again for a second. The difference between sort of Windwalker Monk in Shadowlands and now, and with the emphasis on like Blackout Kick and getting Feline Stomp back and not being forced into taking a Covenant ability that I didn't like Bone Dust Brew. I am really excited about Windwalker Monk. I think their damage is outrageous. I don't have any footage of them here. I'm sorry, but I'll have footage of everybody else. Unfortunately, they just don't really make the cut for me. I think one big problem for Windwalker Monk for me is the mastery. Having to manage keeping up my mastery stacks mentally while also potentially leading a raid is going to make it difficult for me. So that's one other factor I have to think about when I'm choosing my main here, is that I'm very likely going to be co-leading or leading a raid team. And that makes a really big difference in terms of how complicated do I want a spec to be. So like, for Windwalker Monk, I'm managing my chi and my energy and my mastery, and maybe keeping track of all those things while trying to learn a new raid is probably not the best idea for me. So for those reasons, I'm going to be probably steering clear of Windwalker Monk. I'm also not in love with Brewmaster or Mistweaver. Yes, Windwalker Monk has the Trinity. I talked about that, but I don't love the playstyle of Brewmaster or Mistweaver, unfortunately. So going to be putting Windwalker Monk on the shelf for now. Let's talk about, let's shift over to DK. So I really actually enjoyed Unholy DK. And you can see in the footage here, Unholy DK was just crushing through dungeons. And I'm not even that experienced on it yet, but Unholy DK is one of those specs that like I have really come to love just in the beta. It's something I didn't play a whole lot of in Shadowlands. I did it a little bit, but it was one of those specs that I had a hard time wrapping my head around, and now I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on it, and we're doing like 80k right there on like a small pack. It just does so much damage, and with the new talent trees, it feels like it's easier to access this spec once again, just like Arms Warrior and similar to Feral Druid, which we'll talk about a little bit later. These specs all feel like they've really opened up, and it's really easy to play them now. So I actually really enjoy Unholy DK. Unfortunately, there's so many other parts of the list here that are missing. Like, I'm not really in love with Frost DK right now. I'm not in love with Blood DK. I don't like it as a tank. It's just not my favorite way to play tank. So that's difficult in terms of my decision. I'm not getting the full Trinity because there's no healing spec for DK. It does have lots of utility, and it is lots of fun to play. It just felt to me like I'm missing out on some of the extra roles and maybe multiple build options as well. So just it's not as fun for me as some of the other specs for sure, but it is very enjoyable. It was very, very close to making it onto my list. So this is something I'm going to keep in the back of my head. It's not something that I'm never going to play. It just kind of didn't make my top 5. So, all right, that being said, let's jump into the top 5 specs that I could potentially play for Dragonflight. Now, I'm going to give you, in order here, I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the very last one that I give you is going to be my main for this expansion. But all these other ones that I'm giving you, all these other specs are basically going to be alts that I'm very interested in playing. And I do think that Dragonflight is an alt-friendly expansion. And we're going to start off with Survival Hunter. That's going to be the first one that we'll jump into. So Survival Hunter is sort of, I love it to death. It's like right after my own heart. I really, really enjoy Survival. I love that it's a melee spec. I never wanted it to be ranged again. It does have some interesting build variations now with the Ranger build, where you're focusing on your damage over time from your bleeds. You can take serrated shots on the class side of the shoot. You can take Explosive Shot, and then you could go Kill Shot, Explosive Shot, and Serpent Sting, and you can get lots of damage out of those abilities. I think that's an interesting variation, and there is some build diversity there. You can also just do the Bombardier build, where you're just chucking bombs, very much like the tier set bonus from Shadowlands. That's a very fun build as well, but you can do a kill shot oriented build with coordinated assault. And then there's a brand new Spearhead cooldown that they're also getting for single target, which I've experimented with a little bit. It's a little underwhelming right now. I'm hoping it gets some love, but the bottom line is there seems to be a lot of options for me to go in the talent tree, kind of where I want to go and potentially try out some really cool stuff. So that's what got me very excited. Survival Hunter, it will not be my main going into Dragonflight, but it is going to be a very, very solid alt character that I'm going to consider for sure. So let's move forward. Paladin, Ret Paladin in particular, would be the next one that I was thinking about a lot, and I didn't get any. I did do some dungeons with it, but I just wasn't able to find the footage, so we've got some dummy footage here. But Ret Paladin is absolutely dunking in Mythic Plus. It is slapping so hard. Like, it just blasts the way it should be blasting. So the one thing that has me really, really sad about Ret Paladin is that Blizzard, like, took away... They took away mobility from the class tree, so Paladin's losing mobility in Dragonflight, and they haven't fixed it yet, which is so sad. And on top of that, Ret Paladin in particular lost utility because you can't get spell warding in the class tree anymore. It's just really sad that they took that away, and the defensives on Ret Paladin have not really improved much. They added the one Divine Protection, I think, back in for Ret Paladin, but it's not better than the Vengeance Shield. So unfortunately, it feels like on the utility side of things, which is one of my criteria, Ret Paladin has lost a tremendous amount of utility. They're always going to have Bop and Freedom and stuff like that, but it just feels like we were really hoping to get that super substantial raid utility like with Spell Warding, and they kind of lost that. So, yes, it's absolutely blasting, and it is fun to play. And it's a little bit higher on the list because it does have the Trinity, and I enjoy playing Prop Paladin and Holy Paladin. Sorry, I enjoy playing all three of those specs. So that is another big bonus for Paladin, which is why I would put it above Survival Hunter, which doesn't have that Trinity effect. So probably Paladin is something I'm going to pick up a little bit earlier in my alting versus Hunter. Survival Hunter is a little bit further down the list there for me. So, but Paladin, Ret Paladin in particular, again, just suffers from the lack of utility, and that makes me kind of sad because they did have it, and then Blizzard took it away. It's just, like, really awful. It is also a ton of fun to play. Honestly, it just blasts. You drop your cooldowns, and you just blow everything up. Not my absolute favorite way to play the game because you are relying a lot on wings as your cooldown, and if you kind of mess up your timing on Avenging Wrath, then you can be in trouble in terms of how much damage you're able to pump out. So I like specs that have like very low cooldowns that don't require you to wait for like the 2-minute window to show up there. So let's move on from Paladin. We're moving up the list to number 3. Paladin was number 4 on kind of my alt list. Number 3 on my alt list is going to be Outlaw Rogue. So I have absolutely loved Outlaw Rogue. It is my favorite, like, frantic way to play the game. I love how fast it is, and really the skill cap on Outlaw Rogue is how fast can you press your buttons in the correct sequence, and I just love that because it's just, if you do it correctly, it can look like this, where you're getting up to 100k DPS. I think we do spike over 100 here, which is really, really cool. Yeah, 101 there. So Outlaw Rogue is amazing. It's super fast-paced, and I love that. I love how much attention it requires, and I love how quick and crazy it can get. To me, there's like nothing faster. I know Fury Warrior is really frantic as well, but I just love Outlaw Rogue. Number 2, the survivability in Outlaw Rogue in the class tree is really crazy. Oh, I thought I had more there. Well, we'll just replay that. The survivability on Outlaw Rogue is absolutely crazy. Like, the class tree provides so much ridiculous healing. I just did a video recently on it, and they have crazy amounts of healing. They have crazy amounts of DR with Feint, and they can cloak any magic damage, evasion for physical damage. They also bring rage utility like Atrophic Poison, which reduces the boss's damage by 3%. So they bring a tremendous amount of utility and their own protection, and then they also bring damage. So I'm also very familiar with them at this point, so playing them in a raid and potentially raid leading might not be that difficult to do. So they did lose some fun CDR with the Restless Blades, which was unfortunate for them. Blizzard did have the cool, like, giving your entire raid team Restless Blades cooldown, basically, but unfortunately they took it away from that. But I still love playing Outlaw Rogue. It's absolutely one of my favorite things to play. I have probably the second most fun that I've ever had playing Outlaw Rogue. Of any of the specs, it's my second favorite to play. So that's why it's so much higher on the list here. And I'm definitely going to be rolling an Outlaw Rogue as an alt when we get into Dragonflight. And I've kind of got my Shaman set up in a good place, and I've just ruined everything there, but that's okay. Let's go to the second to the top here. So we are looking at Feral Druid, and this was actually one that kind of came out of left field for me, but I've really enjoyed Feral, and it's actually doing a ton of damage, and it feels like the entire package has been made easier to play now. Feral Druid had a lot of spinning plates, and it still does have some spinning plates, but what Blizzard has absolutely fixed for Feral Druid is the energy regeneration on this spec. So it used to really suffer like Arms Warrior with Rage. It used to be really, really difficult to generate energy at kind of the appropriate rate and to be able to be pressing buttons all the time. It was a little bit more like Assassination Rogue, where you had to set up your bleeds and then be very careful and intentional about how you spent your energy. And nowadays, Feral Druid is just, not that it's a spammy class, but you can spam a lot more now with how many talents opened up for Feral Druid. You can get so much energy regen, so many combo points generated for free from like Tiger's Lust and stuff. It's just really, really fun to play now, and it feels more accessible for players like me who were very bad at playing this kind of style back in Shadowlands, historically. I've just been very bad at this. So now it just feels more intuitive to me, and I feel like it's really fun to play. And I love that you have a 1-minute Convoke that's back. I've really enjoyed Feral Druid, and it's something I'm going to seriously take a look at once my main is sort of like in a comfortable place, which I totally haven't ruined what my main's going to be. But I just really do enjoy it. The damage is competitive now. The bleeds get up and running really quickly, and they've just put in so many quality of life talents for Feral that make it so that you can get your damage out much more quickly, and you can keep pressing, Primal Wrath to get that AoE rip going. So really enjoy that. On top of that, Druid in general has got what is going to be my favorite tank going into Dragonflight, and I'm very, very excited to play Guardian Druid. And I've just been really excited to look at the talent tree for Guardian Druid and see that there's so many options for you. You can go down a Moonfire route, and they get a bunch of healing from 30% of the arcane damage that you deal will heal you. You can get extra Moonfires going everywhere with Galactic Guardian and Twin Moonfire. You can go down the left side of the spec tree for Guardian Druid and get Maul talents and really focus on getting Thrash and Maul generating shields for you, which is really, really cool. I love that Maul is becoming a thing again. It's just been like such a bad button to press for so many years because it definitely, if you had extra rage to dump, that's fine, but now it actually has extra utility, giving you that extra healing and so on and so forth. So Guardian Druid has been really fun to play. I've played it a bunch already, and I'm really enjoying it. It feels faster than it is in Shadowlands. You can get more movement speed. You have so many tools that you want to, whatever you want to use for healing and for survivability. And I think the damage is higher now because of the Moonfire changes, because of the Maul buffs, and the tier set bonus that's coming for Guardian Druid. I rated it very highly in my tank tier set list. I think it's going to be very, very strong and make Guardian Druid a force to be reckoned with. So I'm excited to play Druid, and the final reason would be because I actually have also enjoyed Resto Druid. I don't have any footage of me on Resto Druid here, but there's a big emphasis in the Resto Druid tree on Life Bloom and some Swiftmen buffs, and I love the style of double Life Bloom and getting all the Life Bloom buffs. There's some serious healing that can come out of that now. So for those reasons, I've really, really enjoyed Druid, and it's something that is number 2 for me on my list. Feral, Guardian Druid, and Resto Druid. I enjoy all three of those. So it's got the Trinity, it's got the fun that I really want, it's got the different build diversity that I'm looking for. It's really, really high on the list there. But without further ado, the final one that I will be looking at is, of course, Enhancement Shaman, and it is going to be my main going into Dragonflight. So Enhancement Shaman, you know, it's just like it's the thing that I started on my entire channel. I mean, it would be kind of silly if I didn't main this in Dragonflight, but I do want to be clear that I'm going to be getting alts up and running pretty quickly in Dragonflight because I think it's going to be pretty alt-friendly, and I'm going to want extra professions on all my different alts anyway. So, but what I love about Enhancement Shaman, number one, it's the funnest thing that I've ever played, and I still love playing it. It's my favorite thing to play. It's the most fun that I have in this game when I'm playing Enhancement Shaman. Number two, the build diversity is insane. You can go now with the Thorum's Invocation, you can go for an Ascendance build with DRE and get the big lightning bolts going from like Storm Strike spam. You can go with a Fire and Ice build that focuses on Hailstorm, but also spreading Flame Shocks with Hot Hand. You can go with a full-blown fire build with Fire Nova, like we had for most of Shadowlands, and you get lots of Lava Lash damage, lots of Fire Nova damage, lots of Flame Shock damage. You can go for just a pure ice build with the new Ice Strike that enhances your Hailstorm Frost Shocks. Very, very strong. You can also go a Wind Fury type build that focuses on Doom Winds, spreading Cleave with Crash Lightning, and getting the Wind Fury procs hitting all those enemies. There is so much diversity within the tree, and I absolutely love it. On top of that, it does a crazy amount of damage. You'll see in this clip right here, we get well over 100k on this big pull, almost up to 150, I think there. It just does crazy, crazy amounts of damage, which I'm very excited about because Enhancement Shaman hasn't been in the best place in the last couple of years. It's been actually pretty good in Shadowlands, but sometimes that can be difficult. So the other part of it is that it has part of the Trinity, which is Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman is my favorite healer to play, and I've played it for so long now. I really love Resto Shaman, and I really love Enhancement Shaman. I don't hate Ellie as well. Ellie would be my favorite range DPS to play, so I will fiddle around with Ellie as well. But the bottom line is Enhancement Shaman is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to be taking it into Raid with me and into Mythic Plus. If they need me to switch to healer, I'm more than happy to switch over to Resto Shaman. I really enjoy that playstyle as well. But I just love the build diversity coming out of Enhancement Shaman. I love how many different styles I can play. I love the damage that it's doing. It seems to be going very, very well. And the Trinity in this spec is incredibly strong as well. The last thing I'll mention is that in the class tree for Shaman, I think we have one of the best class trees with some of the best utility you can hope for. Things like Windrush Totem, things like the Poison Totem. You can knock enemies up with Thunderstorm. You have a kick. You have an AoE stun. You have different forms of mobility. You can cool down your totems. You can give healing to your group. You can give mana back to your healers with Mana Spring. There's so much utility that I can offer my team, and that is exactly what I want to be doing. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are you planning to main in Dragonflight? I would love to hear from you. What do you think about my list? And what are you thinking of maining? And what do you think is going to be your alt character in Dragonflight? Please let me know in those comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.